22 miles an hour going up that hill.
50 miles an hour!
Woo-wee! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we are on a very, very, very special e-bike with a whole lot of power. You guys already know which bike we're on. The GOAT Power Bikes, Motor GOAT, but I've made it extra special. I've increased its power. I've thrown on a new Sabaton 100 amp controller, and a lot has been changed with this bike. We're gonna go over a lot of those little changes today. One of the things that I finally got working on this bike that I've wanted to get working on this bike for a long time is the Regen. So the Regen now works phenomenally, and there's actually two types of Regen now. There's one when I'm just coasting, there's a little bit of Regen there, and there's another one when I hit the brake, which gives me more Regen. And what's amazing is that all of that is adjustable in the settings. I can make it as strong or as weak as I want to. Well, let's do this steep hill climb test just for fun, just to remind you guys just how much power this thing has. Look at this, we're flying. Like 20, 23, 22 miles an hour going up that hill. Right now I'm seeing 6,500 watts on the display. That is a whole lot of power. That's a big upgrade from where this bike was. Before, this bike could climb that hill at about, 14, 15 miles an hour, maybe. Now we're at 22 miles an hour. That's a big upgrade. The shunt mod test, look at this. Look at this, guys, 16 miles an hour, and we're like accelerating slowly. Dear God, crazy. Absolutely wild. Oh yeah, so much power. We could just fly in this thing. There we go, tuck down, flying. The top speed isn't that much higher than what it used to be. If you were to buy a brand new Motor GOAT now, you'll only go a little bit slower top speed wise than this bike right here.
47. Okay, yeah, now we're talking. Yeah, baby, 50 miles an hour.
Woo-wee. But the amount of acceleration this bike has now is way different. It's totally different. And of course, it is completely silent now. I think the old controller was a square wave controller versus sine wave, and the square wave controllers just end up giving you a little bit more motor noise than a sine wave one. With the sine wave controller, it's dead silent. You can't even hear anything. With the square wave controller, it almost sounds like a GOAT. The motor has this kind of noticeable groan to it, almost like a geared hub motor, except there are no gears in there. But now this thing is really silent. And what I want to do is tinker a bit with the controller today. In the past, we've gotten this bike to just about 49 miles an hour. I would like to tinker with it today and see if we can get it a little bit faster with the field weakening. We'll see how it goes. We're going to head on down to our top speed testing site now. Look at this. No problems keeping up with traffic. This is such a good little commuter now, especially because I have almost 5,000 watt hours of battery capacity. I have the stock 25 amp hour tank battery right here and a 50 amp hour battery with Samsung cells from Kevin over at Northeast Battery Systems. The battery weighs only 30 pounds, which is lighter compared to a lot of other big batteries that you can fit in this frame. And he did tell me now he can make 60 amp hour batteries for this exact bike. So in case you guys truly wanted 5,000 watt hours of battery capacity, he can give you that as well. I'll leave links to all his information in the description below, along with some pricing options in case you guys are interested. I did make a video on that battery right up here. I'll post it right up here on the side of the screen for you guys in case you're interested. Looks like the speedometer is right on the money. We're about 1 mile an hour off, somewhere on there. The 0 to 20 on this thing is phenomenal. Let's test it out right now. This looks pretty flat. We're gonna watch this speedometer because this one lags. Here we go, 3, 2, 1, boom. 20. 30. 40. All right. Let's see how fast it is if I pedal. And this, by the way, isn't even at a full charge. We're at 66.7 volts. Full charge is actually 71, 72 volts. We're going to pedal as hard as we can from gear 7. Pedal assist 5, 3, 2, 1, boom. 20,
30, 40. Hell yeah.
I want to pull over and show you all the little things that I've changed on this bike, because I know a lot of you guys have been following this specific build, and yes, it has taken me forever to finish it, but because it's taken me a little bit longer than normal, we've had some cool additions to this that I did not expect to even add, like a really nice seat from Next Level Seating and these 6-piston brake calipers up front that we're going to talk about in a second. Alright guys, so here we are. Here is the almost finished product. The only thing I have left to do in this bike is add a different lighting kit, but that's a small job. I'll show you guys a video when that's done. I know most of you guys care about the power and the performance of this bike anyway. So if you guys see right here, these are just some blinking lights that I added for now. I don't have this rear light wired in because I'm going to be replacing this anyway with some really nice looking turn signals and a nicer light up front. But anyway, look at that guys. No more mess down here of wiring. That's the new controller down there, 100 amps, and it is exposed so it gets plenty of cooling. I did of course add Statorade into the motor as well, and I don't know if you guys can see, there's a little bit of silicone at the seams. That's because what you want to do is when you put the motor back together after adding Statorade, it's always good to add that in so it doesn't leak out, and so far I haven't seen any leakage, so I think we're good. If you notice down there, those are our pink brake pads. Those are actually ceramic brake pads, and I just want to test them out, see how they are. So far so good, but this motor helps me with regen. When I hit the brake, it helps me stop in conjunction with the other brake, so I always get 2 wheels stopping the bike. Even when I hit the front brake, the rear motor does stop. It's not so much that it will mess up the dynamics of the bike, but it will help a little bit. So I do get extra stopping power in addition to the front brake and the rear brake.
And as far as the regen goes, I have a good amount on the rear motor when I hit the brake,
and I only have a tiny bit when I'm coasting because I like to coast. I don't want to be braking all the time even when I'm trying to coast, but mostly I wanted to get the brakes working. So let's bring it up to pedal assist 5, get some good speed on that wheel, hit the throttle. Notice how it slows down? Almost like the brake is on, but it's not. Now this right here, remember this is the rear brake. If I hit this, yeah, it does brake. This is the front brake. So what I'll do now is I'm going to turn the wheel and you guys will see how it stops because the brake sensor turns on and it tells the rear wheel to stop. Let's see if I can show this to you guys. So watch this. Front brake right here, okay? Front brake. See that? Accelerate and then front brake, but the rear wheel still stops. Notice how it's stopping a lot faster than with the coasting regen. So I have 2 forms of regen. Since there's regen, I did add a white line on the wheel nut to make sure that I can visually see if they're getting loosened or not. You always want to check these nuts on all your bikes periodically because sometimes they get loose and then the axle starts to wiggle and then your entire wheel with the motor flies out of the bike, and that's not good, or damage occurs. And that's always good to check these out, but because of regen, now it can wiggle both ways. There's forces this way and this way going on in the axle, so definitely important to check this out. I might even later on add another torque arm to this. We'll see how these hold up. Something else I want to add to this bike is a better kickstand, but that's a minor issue. We're not really going to talk about that. As you can tell under here, all the wires are nicely hidden under the seat as well. I'll put up a picture of what I did to hide all the wiring. I know you guys probably remember the mess of wires that was hanging out over here. Now it's all gone. Everything is concealed nicely. And this controller does have a small little wire underneath. See that little white plug right there? What you have to do to program this controller is you just unplug that, and then you can easily program it with your phone through Bluetooth, and then you could just plug it back in. I have it mostly concealed, but still available to unplug. I can reach in there and unplug it if I need to do any kind of programming, and we will do that today. Other things I've changed on this bike, I've added the 350-pound spring. Before, way back when this bike first came out, it had the 550-pound spring, which was just way too much. And this is perfect for the weight of this bike and my weight, which is 200 pounds. Now I get plenty of travel with this suspension, but it's not so much that the rear wheel hits the controller. It's not that much. The seat is from a brand new company called Next Level Seating, and why these guys are unique is that they actually add in springs into their seat, small springs, big springs, and a bunch of other material to make sure the seat is as comfortable as possible. A lot of other seat companies just stuff in all kinds of foam in there, and sometimes they flatten out. But because there are physical springs in this seat, you're likely to get better longevity out of the seat. Nothing's going to compress and pancake down, and you're going to get way more comfort. And this is, by the way, a guts cover, one of those guts covers without the logo on there. So they took the logo off. I told them I wanted a cleaner look. I'll leave a link to their company in the description below. So far, so good. They're really communicative, and they'll give you the exact seat you want for a pretty good price compared to the competitors. So we'll keep using this seat, see how it goes. It is on the thicker side, of course. It doesn't have a very low profile look. It's not the best looking seat, but I am more of a comfort kind of guy versus aesthetics. This battery is the stock battery. I did remove the logos from it. I did remove a lot of the logos. The only logo that this bike has is the cutout right here and the GOAT Power Bike logo up front. I'm not big on logos. I wanted this thing to be blacked out, and I think it looks better. I think too many logos on anything is kind of tacky. So in my opinion, this looks much better. But this battery has a different BMS in it. What Kevin from Northeast Battery Systems told me is that it has a battery BMS that's better suited for regen. So internally, it's going to better protect the battery pack from too much current going out, but also too much current going in. And he also said this has a common port BMS. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but he said that's going to be much better for regen purposes. And the battery that he built down here as well also has a common port battery pack. And what that'll allow for is a much safer experience for regen. I do have both of these batteries hooked up in parallel. Just with a Y splitter, I ended up getting rid of the battery blender because it was actually heating up. It was working, but it was getting too warm for my liking, which means that energy is escaping through heat instead of turning the wheel, which means there was a point of inefficiency. So with two high quality BMSs in there, and with these batteries constantly being plugged in together, they are always equalizing in voltage. So there won't be any rapid discharging from one battery to another. And with the high quality BMS installed, they are going to better protect themselves to make sure nothing bad happens. On this bike, I also did install an 11 to 34 rear freewheel. Before, I didn't want any kind of gearing at all. I just wanted one single gear. I couldn't really find a good spacer that was a decent price for that single gear, so I opted to just throw the gearing on anyway. And that's good to have just in case you have a power failure. I have that big granny gear up here, stock chainring up front. I might replace this in the future anyway, just to give it a better look. But overall, this gives you a pretty good amount of gearing, a good range. You're still going to be ghost pedaling with this bike, but if you do want to pedal nice and slow and get some torque out of that big gear, you can definitely do that. Couple things you guys are going to need if you do install a new controller like this is a new pedal assist sensor. They do sell right and left versions. I just ordered one. It happened to be the left-sided version, so I just threw it on this side. Now I have working pedal assist on this bike if I need it. So see, I got the pedal assist working here. Gear 7. I could just cruise around casually pedaling this 50-mile-an-hour high torque e-bike, 17 miles an hour. So now I'm ready for a rail trail. I have functioning pedals. I can really make this bike sip on the batteries. On the display, I'm only pulling 400 watts right now. And if I want to, we can gun it. If you guys notice, I do have new grips on this bike. This is an upgraded grip from the last one, in my opinion. It feels much better. And I got this primarily because I had to throw on a new throttle on this bike. This is a 3-pin throttle system. The last one was 5-pin. I tried a bunch of different combinations of wiring it into the controller, and it didn't work out. So I just ended up getting a new throttle that works perfectly, and it feels much better also. You guys have already seen this, but I do have that 6-piston caliper up front. That's going to give me a lot of extra stopping power for this bike. Same 203mm rotors. I will leave a link to this 6-piston caliper in the description below. They do sell a braking kit rear and front. I only threw mine on the front because I'm going to use the other caliper on a different bike. And Remember guys, I have the motor and the rear brake stopping the back of the bike, so I don't need extra power over here. I need the extra braking power up front. And I did ask the company that sent me these brake calipers to also send me an extra brake lever to make sure I had matching brake levers. And by the way, I did make it so that the left lever is now the front brake and the right one is the rear, just like a normal bicycle. If you guys remember, the stock bikes come with a 4.5-inch wide tire up front, which does have some clearance issues in the fork. Nowadays, all of them come with the 4-inch wide tire, so I did buy that and I installed it on this bike, so now we don't have any issues right here as well. So future changes to this bike, what I might do, I might switch the derailleur to something a little bit better. I might switch the front chainring to something either bigger or smaller. I haven't decided yet, but something that's more blacked out, because I want this thing to be totally blacked out. It does need a new lighting system, but that's going to be easy to do. I'm going to have the guys over at Spark Cycle Works throw on a brand new lighting system with a horn, turn signals, a real motorcycle front headlight. They do sell those custom kits for any DIY people who like that kind of stuff. I am also tempted to add higher handlebars. I know this bike looks cool with that lower handlebar look, but I do like the comfort of a more upright seating position. But yeah guys, besides that, this bike is essentially finished. What I want to do now is test out the field weakening on this bike. I've tested it out a couple other times, but now that I've got all the wiring set up exactly how I want it, I want to see if we can get closer to 50 miles an hour on this bike. Let me show you guys how to program that. All right guys, so let me show you how to do this. I know we're in a different spot. I had to run home and get my second camera battery because my battery died. But what we're first going to do is reach under the seat and unplug the little white wire that I showed you guys earlier. There it is. Now the controller is in programming mode. We're going to go ahead and open the app. It says not connected. There's our controller connecting. All right, we're in. So it says the current battery voltage, 70 volts. There's all our current stats. Controller temperature, 25 degrees Celsius. So we're going to press the little gear icon. And if you notice right here, we go to function. E-brake means that when I touch the brakes, it's going to give me 30 amps of current back into the batteries through Regen, or at least it's set to 30. I think it's going to give me more if the motor is going faster. I'm not 100% sure. When I'm coasting, it's going to give me 15 amps of current into the batteries. Some people like that, some people don't. It's personal preference, but what's nice about this controller is that you can change it to however you want. You can have the Regen be strong or weak. You can have it turn on when you hit the brakes. You can have it turn on when you're coasting. You can even set it up so that you have a separate Regen throttle if you don't want to use your brake pads at all. Important note on the Regen is that it's not going to give you any noticeable amount of power back into your batteries. At best, it'll help you save your brake pads, but more than likely you guys won't even notice any additional range on your ride. But it is nice to know that it is adding something, even if it's small, and you're saving your brake pads. And this is a very heavy bike, so I'm happy that we're saving brake pads. Save it, operation done. And now what we do, notice how we have a communication error on here. Now we'll turn the system off, plug our wire back in, there we go. And now when we turn this back on, no errors at all. We're going to put our heated motorcycle gloves back on. These are from a company called Ride Iron. These are awesome. Link in the description below. Keeping my hands nice and toasty.
So this part I'm going to narrate over because it was done over the span of 3 different test rides. Earlier this year, we hit 49 miles an hour on this bike, but interestingly enough, this time around, we were only hitting about 46 to 47 miles an hour. The 2 factors that could be slowing things down are 1, temperature, since before it was closer to between 75 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and now it's only 35 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And second, I did add a teeny tiny bit more than recommended of the magnetic ferrofluid in the motor itself. I wanted to prioritize maximum heat dissipation and maximum motor longevity. However, this might be adding a tiny bit of internal resistance to the motor. It's not clear which factor is playing a bigger role in slowing the bike down by a few miles an hour. Let's talk about field weakening. In short, field weakening is where the magnetic field inside the motor is adjusted and weakened so it can increase its maximum RPM at the expense of lowering torque. This is great for getting a higher top speed than usual at a specific voltage. There are some downsides to this. Number one, it does use up a lot more power than when you have it turned off, and it also adds a lot more heat into the motor. I tinkered with 10, 20, even 30 amps of field weakening, but the top speed stayed about the same. I was also adjusting the DC current limit relative to the field weakening current to keep the controller at 100 amps. I'm still not sure if that was the right way to adjust the settings, but in the next scene, you'll see what happens when we finally got the settings right. I'll leave some screenshots of my settings up here, just in case you're watching and you have a lot of experience with these Sabaton controllers. You guys let me know in the comments, are there any settings in here that I could optimize to make this thing go even faster? Leave a comment below.
Alright, so we're out here for another day. I want to try and keep messing with this controller. We'll set it back to programming mode. I got 49 miles an hour one time with this bike. I don't know how that happened. Maybe it was just warmer that day. I mean, it is cold out right now. It's even colder today than earlier. It's like 40 degrees out right now, somewhere around there. So turn this back on. What we're gonna do is try and keep all the amps at 100 except simply add field weakening. And we're gonna add a lot. We'll just add 50 amps. I don't know. All right, 50 amps, operation done, we saved it. Turn this off, plug the wire back in, and let's try it out. And this is a great time to try stuff like this because it is cold, and that will help keep the motor nice and cool. And here we go, see what happens. Hopefully we don't break down. Pedal up to speed, pedal, 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 pedal. 47, okay, yeah, now we're talking. Yeah, baby, 50 miles an hour. All right, yes, woo! All right. So that's what it takes. Okay, so I had my settings wrong the whole time. Let's try that again, but with less field weakening. I think the most I tried the other day was 30 amps. Let's do that again. Okay, so I can still officially call this a 50 mile an hour e-bike. Good. We're gonna bring the field weakening down to 30 instead of 50 and see if we can still hit that 50 mile an hour mark. I am really happy we got to 50 because I swear I did 49 on this thing before and it's been going slow and it's kind of frustrating, but we are back in business, ladies and gentlemen. 50 miles an hour officially. I'm gonna bring the field weakening back down to 30 just to test it, right? 30, all right, operation done. We saved it. Believe it or not, I might not even keep field weakening on with this bike in general because it is hard on the motor. It adds a lot of extra heat on the motor and I'm already pushing this motor to its absolute limit. Maybe even past its limit. When you put a lot of power into a motor, and it's not designed for that amount of power, it's not a matter of if it'll break, it's a matter of when. It might be 10 miles in, it might be 1,000 miles in, but eventually that motor is gonna stop working, one of the wires inside will melt, everything will short out, and that's it. So when you build stuff like this, you wanna build it to be as reliable as you can, unless you don't care, you can just throw a new motor in there, but we'll see how it goes, guys. 30 amps of field weakening now. 3, 2, 1, go. Here we go, pedal up to speed. Can we hit 50 again? Pedal, pedal, okay. 40, we're ducked down. 43, 45. I feel a little bit of a stronger headwind actually going this way. 46, okay. All right, so long story short, it takes 50 amps of field weakening to hit 50 miles an hour with this bike. Maybe because it's cold, maybe it'll go faster in the summertime. We'll probably hit like 52, I'm guessing. But I wanted to make sure we adjusted all the settings as much as possible to see if we can get as much power out of this as possible. So in my opinion, I think field weakening on this bike is not worth it because we're putting a lot of unnecessary stress on this bike for only a couple more miles an hour of top speed. Not really worth it in my opinion. So we'll probably end up putting the field weakening back down to 0 and just run 100 DC amps of current, call it a day. Top speed of 47 miles an hour with 0 field weakening and lots of torque. I'll take it. All right, field weakening, just in case, is bringing us down to 0, and then we'll turn it off here as well. Save that, operation done. All right, 50 mile an hour e-bike. 75 amp hours of battery capacity, 63 volt nominal, 17S packs. If I wanted to, I could get away with just using one battery. Obviously, you'll get a lot less distance. If I did only use one battery, I would have to adjust how much current I'm pulling because this top battery is not capable of doing 100 amps. I would probably pull at most 60 amps out of it, and even then, it will still perform a lot worse than the bottom battery because that bottom battery has high quality Samsung cells in there. Thank you, Kevin from Northeast Battery Systems, for making that battery. Great weight efficiency, great power to weight ratio on this bike. 30-pound battery, 50 amp hours of Samsung cells, which, if you guys know batteries, not all batteries are created equal. This battery will give you more power than generic cells of the same exact size. The longer you do this e-bike stuff, the more you realize just how important good battery cells are. There's a reason why they're expensive, because they literally will give you more power, even though the specs are the same battery to battery.
So that's it for today, guys. I did want to just show you guys all the updates on this bike. Stay tuned for the lighting update on this bike. I will be adding motorcycle turn signals, motorcycle headlight, motorcycle rear light, which are much brighter than the stock ones. Just wanted to show you guys the regen function and the settings of this bike and all the other updates.
Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will leave any more information about the battery pack that I have in this bike and this bike itself linked in the description below. Check out my other videos if you want to see how I installed the controller and what the performance was like of this bike with just a shunt mod. Honestly, if I were to do it all over again and I didn't want to put in all that much work, I would just shunt mod the stock controller, add in that second battery, and call it a day, because even that was pretty good. We hit a similar top speed, but that bike didn't have anywhere near the same amount of torque that this thing does. So handling uphill situations, even if it's small, like right now we're going up a small hill, the old controller would have definitely slowed down quite a bit, and this one just keeps chugging along at a very high speed. If you guys like content like this, feel free to like and subscribe to the channel if I've earned your subscription. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I have 2 Facebook groups, E-Bike Addicts and High Speed E-Bikes, 40 miles an hour and up. That's it for today, folks. Until next time.